Hi, it's me, Egbert, Egburt, the owner of this radio station. I invite everyone to listen, no matter if you're young, old, black, white, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, heck, I even want real estate agents listening to my station. Yes, even Rick and Tracy. You're all welcome. Now, it's back to my Goodwill ambassadors, Brad and John.
Get in a long tube with a bunch of demons.
That's my favorite one. Long tube with a bunch of demons. And that's John. John's in a long tube with a bunch of demons, right?
I am. At the first part of the show, I sure was this morning, Brad.
There we go. Okay. In photography, Bokeh, Bokeh, is the aesthetic quality of the blur produced in out-of-focus parts of an image, whether foreground or background or both. It is created by using a wide aperture lens. In other words, what you're seeing is you see the soft stuff in the background, everything's blurry, and that is a effect that is done with a combination of lens and aperture setting, which, once again, I'm getting back into my photography. I have been a photography nerd. My dad, when I was like in junior high, my dad one day, he said to me, "Hey, I got this camera you might want to play with." And he had an old Kodak 35 millimeter SLR camera. And I mean, back in the day, these were nice cameras. They were actually made in Germany. They weren't actually made by Kodak. They were made by somebody else. And man, I would give anything to know what happened to that camera. But I have had some nice cameras through the years, which almost always I buy them used because, for example, I've got a Nikon D1, which new sold for $10,000. I bought it for $100.
Wow. So you're taking advantage of someone's need at the moment. Wow. Way to go, Brad. Very
No, it's technology. The crazy thing about it is when the Nikon D1 came out, which revolutionized digital photography, that's the one that made digital photography to the point where overnight it changed from all the news, all the professional photographers were shooting film. Overnight, everybody went to the Nikon D1. And you saw it at all the press conferences and sporting events and things like that. And once again, technology, that Nikon D1, which I think originally when they first hit the market, the very first run of them were like $20,000. You can go on eBay right now. You can buy for $500. You could probably end up with 10 of them, and just to the point where they only shoot like 2.4 megapixels and the color is not that great and there's a lot of weirdness behind it. Okay,
but you should consider, Brad, real quick. You should consider starting a website where you post pictures every day.
John's making fun of me again. Okay, here's what's interesting. I'm listening to Jason Rosenbaum on Friday evening and the replay of his show. And he's talking, that's where he heard the Lucas Kuntz thing. And he talked about the union thing. He talked about the union thing as well, too. And Jason comes out and says, in full disclosure, I'm a member of two unions. And he
the CWA and SEIU.
Okay, why is that because of... They have two unions at KWMU?
So if you go to my website today and you take a look at the union article, Brad, and you scroll down, you will see that it's because Jason is an adjunct professor at WashU. So that's one union. And then he's also a member of the, what is it? It stands for Smelly, Uneducated, Ignorant, and Useless. Isn't that SEIU?
Service Employees Union International, SEI.
Okay.
International Union, SEIU.
I got that
Service
wrong.
Employees. Well, but typically for a long time, SEIU were the people, and I'm not trying to be snooty about this, but SEIU has huge membership out in Las Vegas. That's typically the housekeeping staff, people like that are SEIU members. And once again, not being demeaning. Why is KWMU, so hold it, let me get this straight. So Communications Workers of America, is that the union he's at with KWMU, or is it SEIU?
Communications Worker of America is St. Louis Public Radio, and SEIU is WashU. Now, Brad, as we've talked about before, unions have resorted to going to places where they usually wouldn't be unionizing, so which is why you see them complaining at a Starbucks or agitating people at an Amazon or agitating workers at WashU. And I'm not sure exactly when WashU professors joined SEIU, but it's been a while.
See, what I don't understand is the KWMU thing makes no sense to me at all because of the fact that almost anybody in the radio business, and the people at KMOX and WIL, I believe still, are all members of AFTRA-SAG. And in full disclosure, I used to be a member of AFTRA, but there were back in the day when I joined, there were two different divisions of AFTRA. There were the full-time employee kind of people, the people that worked like at the TV stations and KMOX and WIL, and I belonged to, it was the same union, but essentially you were sort of categorized as a full-time employer or a freelancer. And I was a freelancer. I used to do voiceover stuff and stuff like that. And I was also a member of IBW Local 4, which is a weird story because of the fact that bingo, boingo, boingo, all of a sudden one day I got a union card. And I go, why is this? And at one point in time, the station was being approached by the union and was trying to be unionized. This is the old KSLQ. And our boss essentially just said, okay, Mr. Union Man, how much to have all my people join the union? And he said, X. The station wrote a check to IBW Local 4, and one day our boss said, you're all members of IBW Local 4, come to my office and pick up your cards. And we're going like, what the hell is this? So we walked in and we got our IBW Local 4 cards. And the bizarre part of it was I never heard another thing. It was to the point where it's like, okay, I got a union card, shows I'm a union guy, but yet and I don't even know at one point in time when I became a non-union guy because of the fact that I never got any correspondence, because of the fact that what happened was the way our boss signed us up, it just signed us up like in bulk. The entire staff, everybody on air. Because once again, this is a carryover from the old days. This goes back a way where I think I told this story one time before at the old KSD, which is now KTRS. They had all these heritage union things, and in the air studio, there were 4 different unions in the air studio. You had the guy in the air who was AFTRA. You had the guy who was turning the knobs and dials, his engineer who was IBW Local 4. You had the American Federation of Musicians, which was a carryover from the old days when they used to run live bands, and he would cue up the records. That was his only job. He would just literally sit in the studio and cue the record. And then you had the IBW Local 1, which was the guy who repaired when the lights went out in the studio. The IBW Local 4 guy couldn't change the light bulb. You have to call to IBW Local number 1. And then you had the people in the front office at the old KSD who were members of the newspaper guild, whatever. Is that what they call it, the newspaper guild or whatever?
Yeah, I think so, yep.
Okay, so in one box you had 5 unions. And I'm going like, that was just crazy, and once,
yeah, of course it is.
And there's all sorts of turf wars because of that. My friend who used to be, years ago, he worked at Channel 4 as a floor manager, and he talked about the fact that one time he brushed against the camera and he got a union grievance filed against him because he touched a piece of the equipment. I'm going like, okay, can we be petty or what? It's not like he grabbed the camera.
Yeah, that sounds pretty petty.
We're talking about one of the big studio cameras. It's not like he grabbed it out of the guy's hand and pulled it across the room and said, hey, look at this. He brushed against it as it walked by it, and he got a union.
Well, the Rosenbaum conundrum is solved now, Brad.
Well, but see, the interesting part of this is, and I think he was talking about this. I got all the statistics. He gave 20 or 30 years ago, 20% of the people employed in the United States were union members. Now it's down to 10%. But the sad part of that is that the reason they have even grown is because they're signing up all the government employees. All the different, which, see, I personally think that's wrong. We talked about this before. I don't think that government employees should be in a union. I really don't, because of the fact that the whole idea behind it is that the fact that they work for the government should have ultimate control over their own employees. But what do I know? And the answer to that question is not much. That's what it comes down to.
The answer is a lot, Brad.
No.
So I'm glad we were able to put the Rosenbaum thing to bed. And by the way, I know you're not an Instagram guy, but maybe he posts these to Facebook. His videos where he promotes the week's show are just hilarious. They're so good.
He's a very creative guy. But see, here's my problem. We talked about this last week. We counted on here. 34 people in the newsroom. He's the only guy that seems like he's working. Everybody else is like, eh.
There's other folks there who produce some content, Brad.
Some content. That's the appropriate. That's the appropriate.
I can't believe I'm defending the St. Louis Public Radio here, but there's a gal who does, like some health stuff. Like, there's all these evolving COVID narratives where you try to get people ginned up and scared about monkeypox or COVID or whatever. Like, there's somebody that covers health. They got a bunch of people who do all like the black victimhood stuff. They actually produce content. I mean, Jason's one of the only ones that does hard news. So to that point, you make a good point, Brett.
Okay. Next thing. Do you know who the Savannah Bananas are?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Don't you find it fascinating that the Cardinals are promoting next season Savannah Bananas are going to be here?
Yeah, and I believe they're coming to Kansas City as well. Yeah, they'll be in I mean, what an incredible money-making operation. For folks who don't know, do you want to give like an overview of that?
The Savannah Bananas are fascinating because the guy who is in head of this, and it's pretty interesting, I put up a video. There's a bunch of YouTube and YouTube shorts and Facebook Reels that feature this guy. I can't remember his name. He's a relatively young guy. He's probably late 30s, early 40s. He talked about the fact that he's a baseball fan, and he talked about the fact that baseball has just gotten boring. And even Major League Baseball knows this because they put the timer in and the pitch clock and all that kind of stuff in. And what he's done is he's sort of reinvented baseball. Now, Bob Costas, if you would take Bob Costas to a Savannah Bananas game, Bob Costas, you'd have to have the paddles there, when Bob went into flatline because, they're ruining my game, because it's crazy time. They do all sorts of dances. They do crazy stuff. And the interesting part of it is they play in Savannah, Georgia. They sell the place out. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but one of my friends on Facebook posted that there is a waiting queue to get the Savannah Banana tickets for when they come to St. Louis. And I would be willing to bet they're going to sell out Busch Stadium. Now,
yeah, I could believe that.
Think about that for a minute, okay? You saw some of the pictures near the end of the Busch, the Cardinal season, where not a lot of fans in the stands. And I will tell you, I know the reason for that. A lot of people won't come out and say this is because Busch Stadium number 3 is in terrible shape. There's pieces of concrete falling all over the place. It's dangerous. There's some places in the stands where if you're like at the upper level, you can look down and you can see a hole and you can see the people below you. It's gotten to be terrible. And what's coming down to is we need to build a new stadium, Ford Stadium. Taxpayers need to pony up. We need to build a new stadium, because if we don't do it, the St. Louis Cardinals could become the Carbondale Cardinals, or the Sauget Cardinals, or the Fairview Heights Cardinals, and we
or
can't.
The Hamburg Cardinals,
right? Or the Tunerville Cardinals. We can't have that. In all seriousness, no. But the interesting part of it is, baseball used to be America's sport. It's not anymore. It's football. I mean, and now on many levels, it's football on obviously NFL. It's football on college, because college is getting, more interesting all the time. Some interesting things over the weekend where Vanderbilt, who was always like the whipping boy of the SEC, beat Alabama, which was like crazy time.
Yeah, and nearly beat Mizzou the week before. They nearly beat Mizzou too. I guess maybe that'd be 2 weeks before.
Right. So Vandy, who used to be like the team there, Vanderbilt, they suck. They've got a decent team. But the crazy part of this is that baseball is just boring. Let's be honest. In an era,
if you're not really into baseball, it's certainly not exciting to watch. If you're not a baseball fan, it would be like golf. Like, I would never watch golf, because it's just, I don't care about the sport, and it just seems boring to me.
And the interesting part of that was, who came and revitalized golf? Tiger Woods. One guy essentially put golf back on, because I remember friends of mine talking about that, like, pre-Tiger Woods, they wouldn't have a tough time getting a tee time at their public course, wherever they played golf at. Post-Tiger Woods, it was tough. And you had all sorts of young people playing golf. A lot of young women started playing golf because of the fact that they saw. And now you've got the interesting thing where there are women, and I'm not trying to say I do this, they just pop up on my feed on YouTube. There's a couple of young women who are making a fortune off of the internet. And the one who I think was sort of left in the dust, who's now trying to essentially really cash in on that, is, who Paige Sporanic is? You know who she is?
I don't know.
Paige Sporanic, I don't think she's on the LPGA tour anymore. Paige Sporanic is a very attractive woman who, shall we say, is quite well endowed above the waist. Would that make any sense? And
yeah, like she's got big ears.
Right. And there's a couple women. There's one woman on Facebook who's not, or YouTube, who's not even that good of a golfer, but she always wears a clingy top with no bra and very short shorts. And she's gotten like 10 million followers. It's crazy.
Well,
and
it's probably because of her technique, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, she's got great technique.
I mean, she's a little top heavy on the ball. I think she gets a lot of backspin. Brad, you're forgetting the golf impact as well of Happy Gilmore in 1996. I mean, he revolutionized his battle with Shooter McGavin. Really changed the complexion of golf. And then it paved the way for a guy named Tiger to come in and kind of steal some of the spotlight. But I think that Happy was probably fine with that. He got his grandma out of that nursing home, and that's all that really mattered to him.
John, can I tell you something?
Yeah, please.
Another movie I've never seen.
Oh, wow. It's pretty good. I wouldn't invest any time watching it. It would be like your version of The Big Short. Like, it's not worth watching. Can we get back to the bananas? Did you have a larger point about the bananas?
Well, I think it's just sort of sad that
I don't. I think it's a beautiful thing that the Cardinals are facing the reality of the economy, which is if you don't put a good product on the field, people aren't going to want to see it. You put an entertaining and successful, however you define that product, on the field, and people will sell out Busch Stadium. Also, the bananas are an attraction. If you live in St. Louis, so for example, Brad, I have a friend who has taken her family to Savannah before and has seen the Savannah Bananas in person and became such a fan that she subscribes to their email newsletter. She gets their updates on Facebook. So when they come to town, you better believe she's buying 4 tickets at whatever cost so that her kids can see the bananas again coming to St. Louis. It's an attraction. Brad, we didn't mention it, but it's like an updated version of the Harlem Globetrotters.
Well, and
like,
you're
if you want to watch the St. Louis Hawks play old-timey, easy Ed Macaulay basketball, you probably don't care about the Globetrotters, but you probably don't care about NBA basketball, but you would pay to see the Globetrotters.
Well, that's why I made the comment about Bob Costas, because Bob Costas is a baseball purist. He doesn't want the designator hitter. He doesn't want the shot clock, the pitch clock, whatever the hell they call it. Now, going back to your friend, she took her kids?
Yeah. So she went to, I believe her initial encounter, I believe they went to Savannah one time on a family vacation and happened to see the bananas. I believe that's the origin story of how she learned about them. And of course, they are I would describe them as a marketing company that just happens to sell a baseball type event. It's like, Brad, the CEO of Domino's once famously said that they were not a pizza company anymore. They were a technology company that just happens to deliver pizza. Anybody who was part of the original Domino's app and saw how easy it was to order a Domino's, you get a Domino's that takes 60 seconds to order it. The bananas, in my opinion, they've never said this, but they're a social media company that their product just happens to be an event where you sit in a stadium and you watch something that looks like baseball. They're a social media company.
I think you've already described it, but her, the friend of yours and her kids thoroughly enjoyed the bananas, correct?
Absolutely, because the kids are under 10 and they don't get bored when it's the 7th inning and the count is 3-0 and there's 30 seconds between pitches. People are juggling, people are shaking their booties on the field. It's entertaining.
Well, it's interesting because I don't know if you know this or not. Maybe this is breaking news, but the guy, I guess I have to find out who it is who runs the Savannah Bananas. They've started their own league. Do you know about this? They're going to do 6 teams.
I did. Oh yeah. Wait a minute. Because I just pulled up the Wikipedia when you were talking about it, and it's called Banana Ball.
Right. And they're going to have their own league where they're going to have, I guess they're going to have 6 cities where they're going to do, this kind of a deal in 6 cities. So they will actually compete, and at some point in time, maybe they'll, expand all over the country. But yeah.
All I hope is, unless they make it to Car Shield Field, I don't know how they could consider themselves successful.
John, okay.
Unless they have Shaquille O'Neal coming in with Albert Pujols and a crabby Brad Hildebrand saying, wait a minute, they're doing 2 entrances? I don't like this.
You're making fun of all my stories when
I'm not making fun of them. I'm saying you were there, Brad, when Pujols and Shaq came in together.
No. They did not come in together. The story is that this was way back. Well, you know what? I'll tell the story next.
Tell it next segment. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the fact that it was an eye opener, even for me being in the media business. I'm thinking to myself, man, this reality TV is 100% fake. It's just all fake.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?